Hey everybody, welcome back to the How Did It Happen podcast. I'm your host, Mike Malatesta. I'm an entrepreneur who's founded and led 2 8-figure companies. I'm also an investor, author, speaker, and lifetime learner. On this podcast, I explore stories of success in every episode and with every guest. What it means, why it's important, and of course, how it happens. You can subscribe, connect, and learn more about me at MikeMalatesta.com. Before we start today's episode, I wanted to tell you about 2 quick things. First, thanks to you, this podcast is in the top 2.5% of all podcasts in the world. My goal is to earn my way into the top 1% group. You can help me with this by sharing episodes and leaving reviews. Second, my new book is going to launch on November 30th, 2021. It's called Ownership. The subtitle is How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck. I'll let you know more about how you can get it as we get closer to launch. Hey everybody, welcome back to the How Did It Happen podcast. I'm very grateful that you are here today, and I'm glad that you listen. I'm glad that you subscribe, and I'm also glad that you share. And you are definitely going to want to listen and share this one because, well, like you do all of them, thank you. But today I've got Jeff. I should have asked you, Jeff, is it Badu? Is that how you say your last name? Or
It's Badu.
Badu. Jeff Badu. First I should thank Justin Breen for connecting Jeff and I. Justin is sort of my master connection pal. Everybody that he finds interesting, he sends my way, and that's how Jeff and I got connected. But let me tell you a little bit about Jeff. So Jeff is a parallel entrepreneur and a wealth multiplier. And I'm going to have to ask him what a parallel entrepreneur is because that's the first time I've heard it. He's a licensed certified public accountant and founder and CEO of Badu Enterprises, LLC, which is a multinational conglomerate that owns multiple companies. And we'll get into some of that, I'm sure. Jeff's purpose in life is to inspire and support the super hungry to take hold of infinite resources in order to create an abundant lifestyle. I love that. He's extremely passionate about financial literacy and currently hosts various financial literacy workshops throughout the country. He's a public speaker and an author and lives in the Chicago area, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, Jeff, I start every podcast with the same simple question, and that is, how did it happen for you?
Yeah, so, with that, definitely appreciate you for having me, Mike. I think it's critical to go to the story in that, for me, I was born and raised in Ghana, which is on the west side of Africa. And I came to the United States when I was 8 years old. I actually came with my older sister, who was 16 at the time. And my parents were already here. So basically, we migrated to the US after my parents. And unfortunately, we were put into a neighborhood called Uptown in Chicago. For those who don't know what Uptown is or where it wasn't the best place to put a young child, let's just say, especially one who just came to America. Now, no fault of anybody because you don't know what you don't know. However, what happened was that, there were times in my life where it was very, very tough. So during those years between 8 through 16, it was extremely tough because I had to get used to a new environment, find friends that were like-minded. And unfortunately, the type of folks that I was hanging around with were people who you wouldn't necessarily want your child to be around, right? So it was a very, very tough time. I learned a ton, right? I learned a lot. You are the experiences that you go through in life. But at the age of 16, I was able to turn things around. That's when I discovered my purpose in life, which is to inspire and support the super hungry to take hold of infinite resources in order to create an abundant lifestyle. How did I come about that? Well, at the age of 16, I took a trip back to Ghana where I saw struggle firsthand. For example, I saw a lady that had 2 babies wrapped around her back. Not one, but 2 wrapped around her back and had a huge load of apples, oranges, right? Whatever it took to make ends meet, whatever it took to feed her family. And I said, you know what? I'm meant to help that individual. I'm meant to be a part of the solution, not the problem. And so that's when I took it upon myself. I said, I need to work harder. I've been given this opportunity to come to America. Why should I throw it all away just because I was down on the wrong path? Why not turn things around and actually help people when it comes to their finances or financial literacy? And so ever since that day when I saw that lady, I said, you know what? I need to work harder. First of all, I need to work smarter. I need to be around more like-minded people that are going towards the path that I want to go on in life. And I also went stronger in my faith. So my faith, my spiritual life got a lot stronger because I was able to connect emotionally and spiritually, And so with that, things turned around. Grades got better in school. I was surrounding myself with more like-minded people. I was attending church. I was a youth leader in my church. And that's what also led me down the journey of being an accountant or a CPA.
So let's talk about you coming here first, Jeff, because you said your parents came first. So tell me how the logistics of this went.
Yeah, so basically, my dad came here. He was actually known to be the first person in my family to migrate to America or to the States. He actually went to the UK first. So he won an immigration lottery, went to the UK, and then he went back to Ghana to reapply for the immigration lottery for more opportunities in America, in the United States of America. And so when he did that, he was able to get accepted through his connections and everything like that. Came to America, worked for a few years, sent some money back to get my mom, and then my mom migrated to the U.S. as well. So actually, between the age of 3 and 8, I didn't actually live with my mom because she was already here in the U.S. and she was, working, getting opportunities, providing for the family and everything like that. She did visit from time to time, but I actually lived with my aunt when I was about 3 years old or so. And with that, what happened was that once we hit 8, then we won. Myself, my older sister won the immigration lottery as well, since we already had family in the U.S. So now we have a stronger case. And so ultimately, we're able to migrate to the U.S. as well, due to the fact that my parents were already there, or here, I should say. And it was a great journey. I mean, every Ghanaian's dream, like in reality, is to come to a place like the US, get more opportunities, more education, more resources, infinite resources. That's a big thing for me. And we were able to, get those infinite resources by coming to America. And so that's how the journey went as far as coming to America.
Okay, and most people listening probably won't have an understanding of the lottery process. So I'm assuming that you enter a process, you pick the destination that you want to go to, and then it's kind of, is it really a lottery where you're just chosen randomly, or is there?
Yeah. I mean, you're literally picked from a hat, basically. But you can put your name in multiple times. So you can apply under different name, different date of birth, that sort of thing. So there's a whole mess when it comes to that world. But overall, when it comes to the lottery system, it's like truly like you're playing the lottery. There are higher odds of winning, right? But back then, when there wasn't as many immigration lottery tickets that could be approved back then, it was much harder to get into the U.S. And so, my dad was very, very fortunate, very lucky to be able to get into the U.S. And then he trickled that down to the rest of the family, and we came here as well.
And it sounds like you all have to enter the lottery independently, even though you're a family. So you can't just buy
Exactly.
one ticket for your family. And
Exactly.
how was it? How did it feel for you and your sister when your parents are gone for, well, your dad more than your mom, but your mom, you said 5 years between when your mom left and came back. Did you think
Exactly.
you, I know you said she came back, but did you think you'd ever have a chance to reconnect in the U.S., or were you optimistic, or were you sad, or did it not matter? Were you just sort of,
I mean, yeah, I was a lost child. I didn't know what was going on in the world. I didn't know why I didn't live with my mom. I didn't know where my dad was. I didn't know any of that. I mean, they did tell me certain things like, hey, we're doing this for a reason. We eventually bring you to the U.S. And my dad visited pretty frequently. I think he came about at least 4 times a year to
oh,
Ghana.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, so he did visit very frequently. My aunt also took great care of me. There's a long story there, but my sister and I actually didn't live together in Ghana. She was living in a city called Mampong, which is one of the, it's not the main city. So I was living in the main city, which is Accra, and she was living where she was born, which was Mampong essentially. And Mampong is home to the village that I was born, which is called Assam. And with that, so my sister and I, we never really knew each other actually. It's kind of a weird story, but we never really knew each other after a certain point in time, like to the point where she came to Accra to live with us just for a few days or a few months before we went to the U.S. I was like, man, who is this person? Because I didn't really know her.
Well, plus she
And
was 11 when you were 3, right? So when your mom left, she was 11. You were 3.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so we were two little kids that know when the world was going on, but now it all makes sense why they were doing it. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah. Okay. And so
Exactly.
you get here and you say you live in Uptown. So what were your parents doing, for work or why? How did they come to settle there?
hmm I think they came to Uptown because they had friends that lived there. So, when you first come to America, you don't know anything. So
Right.
all you know are the people that came before you. And so some of those folks were living in Uptown. That was the older generation. So they didn't really know what was going on with the younger generation. And so, yeah, they settled on Uptown just because they have friends, colleagues, good referrals, that sort of thing.
Got it. And so your dad came to Chicago
hmm
right away when he came to the U.S. Then. Okay.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
and you described Uptown as not being the greatest place. How much different was it than where you grew up in Ghana or at your aunt's place? Or
I mean, yeah, it's a completely different environment. Uptown was at the time it was just surrounded by violence for one.
yeah,
It was surrounded by just a lot of rival, just a lot of negative stuff that was going on at that time. Uptown has since gotten a lot better, way, way better. But if you're comparing Ghana, where I was living, to Uptown at the time, Ghana was more, let's just say, people got along a lot more.
yeah,
In Uptown, they didn't get quite along, quite as along.
okay, okay, fair
Exactly.
enough,
Exactly.
fair enough. And how were you and your family sort of welcomed into the Uptown neighborhood? Was it just like, like I always wonder about immigrants, how
hmm
what because people wherever you go, people have these sort of natural belief systems or whatever. And a lot of times when people come from somewhere else, they treat them like strangers because they don't understand they're just people like everybody
Mm.
else. So I'm wondering what it was like.
I mean, to be honest, I don't remember too much about that side as far as the welcoming piece. I mean, my mom had already had friends and colleagues that were here, and I actually became friends with their kids, right? So, it, I mean, it was fairly welcoming from what I experienced, from what I witnessed. I was able to get, some friends, and ultimately, we became pretty close. We started hanging out together. We basically were looking out for each other. And so, as far as the welcoming piece of someone who just came to America, yeah, I thought it was very welcoming.
Okay.
You know,
And you mentioned that I think you said you were 16 when you went back to Ghana and saw the woman that you described, and that sort of changed your
hmm
mindset, if that's fair to say. Is that right?
yeah, that changed the entire trajectory of my life. It changed everything. It changed my mind. It changed my spiritual life. It got more connected with my spiritual father. And it also just made me more like it. It humbled me basically because when you've been given something, you truly don't know what you have until you either lose it or you're about to lose it, or you feel like you're about to lose it. So being given the opportunity to come to America, thankfully it wasn't taken away from me. But
Yeah.
I felt like I was on the verge of it being taken away from me because my parents could have easily said, "Hey, we're sending you right back to Ghana. You're gonna live there until you learn a lesson, whatever it is." And to be quite frank, my parents didn't really know exactly what was going on in my life, during certain times of the day. They knew some of the friends I was hanging around with, and they had already had some red flags as to those individuals. One of those folks actually went back to Ghana because he was sent back to Ghana.
Okay.
You
So
know, where
what
he
happened to him is what you feared might happen.
exactly,
Okay. Yeah.
exactly. But he came back, and he completely changed his life. I mean, this guy walks around with the Bible in his hand all the time. He's very, very spiritual when it comes to certain things. But overall, like just that environment, I definitely felt like they were going to send me back to Ghana just because of the things they may have heard. But if they really knew deeply some of the things that were going on, they probably would have sent me back to Ghana.
Right.
Exactly.
Have you told them?
Yeah, so they do know part. I mean, they know most of the story.
Okay.
So because they basically read the news and everything like that, and I would say that they, in a sense, they are proud, but there's another side that is, a sense of guilt. Like, hey, why didn't I do, like, maybe they felt like they could have done better with me. But at the same time, it's like you go through different experiences in life to become who you are today, to become a better person. So had I not gone through those experiences, I might have not even owned a business right now.
Right.
I may have not been going to church because I wouldn't know what it feels like to lose your spiritual life and then, gain it back. So I feel like sometimes the point is sometimes you don't know what you truly have until you lose it or until you're about to lose it. And it takes certain experiences in life to get you to where you really want to be in life. Without going through those experiences, the journey, first of all, isn't as fun. And second of all, isn't really as meaningful because you don't know what it feels like to not have it. I wake up every day today as if I don't have anything, as if like I completely haven't worked a day in my life. And that's how I wake up every single morning and say, I need to go grind because what happened before I was 16 can happen again.
And okay, so you go back to Ghana, you see this woman, you come back, so
Hmm.
changes everything you said. What do you do when you come back, Jeff? Because you've got well, you can't hang out with the same people, or I'm sure there's a bunch of different things. So I'm wondering, as a 16-year-old, there's a lot of hard. Even if you want to turn around, there's a lot of inertia probably trying to keep you where you are. So I'm wondering specifically what you did, how you managed
Hmm.
your way through it.
Yeah, great question. I turned to God, honestly. I read half the Bible. I literally, when I came back, like I remember it was that day that the flight just landed at night. I went back to school the next day, and after school, I picked up a Bible and I basically read, I read through it, and then eventually, at the age of 16, I read half of the Bible.
Hmm.
I immediately acquired a mentor, basically, who went to my mom's church. So I had been going to church every now and then, but and I was at my mom's church, and then all of a sudden they started seeing me there every day. They're like, wow, there's some change, there's some progress, there's some growth. And so this mentor actually ironically went through something similar as far as being around, the friends and everything like that. And she basically taught me everything. She taught me what to do during certain moments, what not to do, because some of the friends that I was with back then, they were still like sort of lingering around a bit until we completely disassociated ourselves from each other. We might see each other on the street, we might say, hey, shake hands, whatever it is, but you can tell there's a disconnect because my spiritualness has activated now. Now I actually have a profound purpose in life. I have something that I want to do. So that's exactly what happened, right? I studied harder in school. So I mean I got better grades because I actually spent more time in the books. I started learning more about accounting and tax topics, right? I was on YouTube looking up videos on how to do taxes, or just in general, right, about accounting, learn about debits, credits, things of that nature. I was like, okay, I can get used to this stuff. So no more hanging out at night with friends, drinking, smoking, all that stuff. It was no more of that. It was more, let's after school, let's do our homework, let's study, let's pick up a book, right, known as the Bible. let's read it, and let's learn a thing or two about life.
And then, okay, so that's a great path to be on. I imagine that it probably wasn't easy all the time because, right, people are, you say, yeah, I see them on the street, I say hi or whatever, but I know it's a little different than that. People want to bring you
Exactly.
back in. They
Exactly.
want to make fun of you for choosing a different path or something. So
Hmm.
it takes a lot of
Exactly.
strength. So it sounds like this mentor you had, in addition to the Bible, made a really big difference in keeping you on the right path and safe in your mind, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I felt like even physically I was protected
Right.
by my new friends, my new circle of influence, because they're like, yeah, this guy, he's not only is he somebody we can help, but he's somebody that may even be able to help us. And it's ironic because now I'm the mentor of somebody that used to mentor me, a friend that used to mentor me in the past. I mentor him now. It's more on a financial aspect, but
Okay.
it's still like, hey, he's trying to get things, fully turned around. Um, just because he kind of drifted just a little bit, and now he's basically getting back on path. And I'm like, hey, I've got to keep him on his toes, to make sure he's doing good because he helped me after the age of 16.
Right. And you're still living in the same area during this time, and probably maybe till you go to college. Is that accurate or?
Yeah, luckily it was only a 2-year journey, where I was still in the uptown neighborhood, still going to Uplift Community High School, because I was a junior when I came back. So
Hmm.
starting junior year, took the ACT, and then got into college, the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. I was actually the first person at my high school, Uplift Community High School, in the history of Uplift to be accepted into the U of I. And I
Oh,
actually got into U of I by mistake because I applied for the wrong program.
what was that about? What program did you want to apply to, and which one did you?
So I wanted to apply for the accounting program in the College of Business, but I applied for the agricultural accounting program in the College of Aces.
Okay.
Talk about silly mistakes, but turns out to be a good mistake because I would not have been able to get into the College of Business, with my ACT score and everything that was going on at Uplift. Let's just say we weren't the most prominent school. So
Okay.
we didn't have as many resources as some of the other prestigious high schools that were out there. But I was able to get in. And then I transferred into the College of Business my sophomore year through the connections, through the relationships and everything that I built. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I was still in Uptown for about 2 years, and then I migrated to the U of I, and then I moved out my parents' home, and actually bought my own.
While you were in school or after?
So when I graduated from college, I got the bachelor's in 2014, master's in 2015, and then I got my own apartment.
Oh,
And then I eventually bought my own condo, and still basically still making sure that I'm still close by the parents and everything like that.
okay. And when you were at U of I mean, was it during that time or did it come after where you decided you were going to sort of create your own future as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur at the age of 5.
Oh, you
At
did.
the age of
Okay, so
five.
you were still in Ghana. Okay, so what were you?
Oh yeah.
How did that manifest itself? What were you doing to explore that?
I mean, my family is built like with entrepreneurs. If we were to literally cut our wrists and we started bleeding, you notice entrepreneurship bleeding out of us.
Okay.
We're filled with entrepreneurs so much that, I mean, my mom is an entrepreneur, my dad is an entrepreneur, my older sister's an entrepreneur, my younger sister wants to be an entrepreneur. Everybody basically is an entrepreneur in some way, shape, or form. And so Ghana is our culture is very, very hustle mentality. So meaning that you've got to go out and get it on your own because you can't rely on the government. There is no such thing as government support in Ghana. There's no handouts basically. You've got to really go out and get it on your own. So almost like probably about 70% of the adult population are entrepreneurs. They own their own business, whether they're selling stuff on the street, whether they're manufacturing, they're in carpentry, whatever it is, they gotta go make ends meet. So growing up, I was watching that. That's all I knew. So I knew what it felt like, or I knew what it looked like at least, to become a business owner, to have your own freedom, come home whenever you want, have your own team and all that good stuff. So at the age of 5, anytime somebody gave me a candy bar, I wouldn't eat it. I would sell it. I would sell it to friends. I would sell it to anybody. And so my hunger for like success, my hunger for money grew really at the age of 5, because I said, yeah, there's no way I'm working for somebody. There's no way that I'm letting somebody control my destiny. And that manifested after college, after the U of I, when I actually activated my business plan that I was working on since 2010 when I was a freshman at U of I.
Okay, so when you were a freshman at U of I, you actually started assembling a business plan. That does
Exactly.
it.
Exactly.
Does what you have now look anything like the business plan that you started with as a freshman?
It's 10 times more. So basically, so first of all, I started the business plan as Badu Tax Services, the CPA firm. And with that, I wanted it to be a tax firm that I just wanted to do taxes, right? Just a freshman in college, didn't really know much about the tax world. I did research and everything, but I said, I just want to start doing taxes. And then I learned more about the industry. I read the industry report, and it told me things that I can do to differentiate myself. And going through business classes, they taught me that you always have to have your competitive advantage. So throughout college, I was thinking, what is my competitive advantage? And I said, well, one, we'll be a virtual CPA firm, which we are right now. We're 100% virtual. This is a home office. And then with that too, we're going to educate. We're going to over-educate the community. We're going to over-educate our clients so that their lives become easier. And when you make somebody else's life easier, you in turn make your life easier as well. So with that, I just kept working on the business plan, and then also started doing taxes for friends and family. And anybody who I can get my hands on, I said, I'll do it for you for free, right? I'll do your taxes for you for free. I just want to get some experience, get my feet wet, make sure this is something I really want to do. I'll even pay for the software that I'm using, right? So I did that till 2016. So 2010 through 2014, that's when I was in my bachelor or undergrad.
Right.
When I was at the U of I won a leadership program at PricewaterhouseCoopers or PwC my sophomore year. And then my junior and senior year, I was interning at PwC as an audit intern. Right, so I was actually an auditor. And in 2015 through 2016, I was working full time as an audit associate, and then moved up to become an experienced audit associate. But then on September 2nd, 2016, I turned in my 2-week notice because I said I was fed up. I'm like, this is not what life is about, working for somebody else and just not really enjoying life, like feeling like there's a chain around, your legs, chain around your arms, chain around your neck for you not to be able to move forward. I said, I got to break those chains. On September 16, 2016, that's when I became a full-time entrepreneur, and I've never looked back ever since.
Well, congratulations first off. But what were the changes? Like, was
Mm-hmm.
it that you had to show up at a certain time at a certain place, or you had to follow certain rules, or what were the changes so people know exactly what you're talking about?
Yeah, so I mean, when you're working for somebody, it's like you have to report to that individual every day. So at PwC, Big Four public accounting firm, um, it was very, very tough. Not only was it tough to work for somebody, but it was tough to work in that environment. Very, very type A personality folks. They're very, they're always about, let me get it my way or the highway, basically. So some of the people that I was working with, they were always in a way where it's like, man, like, can I get a small break? Like they're always, always, always wanting you to do something that you don't want to do. So for me, the truth is the freedom aspect. The reason why I really became an entrepreneur was to be free of when to show up for what, right? What type of projects I'm working on. I was working on projects that I didn't want to work on. I was talking to people that I didn't want to talk to. I was sitting next to people who I didn't want to sit next to. And it was just something that I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be forced to be somewhere where I don't want to be. I don't want to be forced to do things I don't want to do. And I don't want to be forced to say, hey, if you don't meet this performance benchmark, you get let go or you don't move to the next level. So there was no movement, even if you made a mistake, basically.
Hmm.
So that type of environment where you learn, but it's like if you make one small mistake, everybody's watching you. If you make one small mistake, then it's going to crush you. And to add to that too, I was the only African American that was basically in that role,
Right.
right? So that too, right? That was a whole another thing. For me, I didn't use it as an excuse or as a barrier or anything like that. But that was also part of it as far as being comfortable with the people you're working with. And I said, something tells me I just don't belong here. It was just, I mean, and I put in my best every single day, and I still felt like it wasn't enough. And I said, you know what? I can thrive more in an environment where it's open, it's growth filled, and it's not this dog eat dog world where it's like, hey, if you make one little mistake, you're out, basically.
Right. Well, I like how you said freedom. You became an entrepreneur for the freedom, which is
Hmm.
why you should become an entrepreneur, I think. But I think a lot of us, and I put myself in this too, sort of
Hmm.
you get started with this, yeah, I want to be free, I want to change the world, I want to do all this great stuff. And then the the nuances or the grind of the business starts to take hold of you, and you begin to you sometimes begin to feel uh, less free than you felt, before, when you were working a job or before you became an entrepreneur. But it sounds like, and I the whole like, okay, I'm in this to be free didn't come to me really and start working on it until 10 years or so into my journey.
Mm.
You, it seems like, got that right away,
Yeah.
and have done I know we haven't gotten into everything yet, but it
Hmm.
seems like you've done everything that you've done has been to grow as an entrepreneur, but also to preserve that freedom. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that is the main reason I do what it is that I do is to be free and to ultimately fulfill my purpose in life that's been given to me.
So the virtual CPA, that is it. Now that would be, in COVID, everybody became a virtual CPA, but I think before that there were
Hmm.
probably very few. So you mentioned, how can I differentiate myself? How did you,
Exactly.
how did you get people to work with you though? Because people still were used to probably, sending their stuff to
Hmm.
CPA or going into the office and having a consult or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how did you
Exactly.
work your way around that?
I mean, to be honest, I attribute part of it to companies like TurboTax,
Hmm.
where they allowed people to sort of be free and not having to meet in person. And I read the industry report from head to toe, and it said moving forward, people are going to want to go virtual, especially as we bring people like millennials who are all about virtualness, all about freedom, all about just having this sense of I don't necessarily want somebody live and in person. Now, you're right. When we started out, or when I started out, I did have to meet more people in person to build my brand, to build the trust, to build the rapport. So it was about 30% in person, 70% virtual. One thing about the online world is you have to have a physical presence online, meaning your website has to be out there. I was exposed to a radio show that became, my own radio show because my cousin owned the radio station. So there were 2 million people that heard me every time I spoke. So now they can put a face to a name just by going online and just seeing, hey, he's there, right? He's alive. He exists. He's a human being. He's not an alien from space. He could do taxes and then testimonials online. So that person, that in-person individual that came to the office, went online, wrote a review, and was like, yeah, he exists. Like he can actually do taxes. And on our website, we put in bold, like, hey, we can do taxes virtually. We have an FAQ section that lets you know how our intake process works. So When you go online, you just have to be extremely transparent. You have to have the physical presence, and you've got to always put yourself out there because, yeah, you're right. Who's going to trust you if they don't really see you online?
Okay, I appreciate that explanation. And the TurboTax thing makes sense because people were getting more familiar with just doing stuff themselves over
Exactly.
on the internet.
Exactly. Exactly.
So when I described you at the beginning as a parallel entrepreneur and a wealth multiplier,
Mm-hmm.
you started. I'm just gonna. So you started as a CPA, but you didn't want to do taxes. And what's interesting about your story is that at least the CPAs that I know, they're who do want to do taxes, but
Mm-hmm.
from an entrepreneurial standpoint, they tend to run like CPAs. So they
Mm.
basically, I mean, they're entrepreneurs in that they own their business,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not
And I
entrepreneurs in that they're looking to do more than run their tax or their
exactly.
consulting business
Exactly.
around that space. But it sounds like, and from the beginning, you weren't gonna be in that box, I guess. So what do you mean by parallel entrepreneur? Maybe we'll start with that, and then we'll get into the multiplier and how you've developed
For sure.
Badu Enterprises. And I love the word enterprises, by the way. And now you're doing
Absolutely.
all of this different stuff that
Absolutely.
probably wasn't in your business plan in 2010.
Yeah. So that's a great question. Basically, when I was creating my business plan for Badu Tax Services in 2010, a lot of people don't also know, a lot of people that know the story don't know that I was also building Badu Investments, which is parallel related to Badu Tax Services.
Oh,
Most
okay.
of our clients in Badu Tax Services are real estate investors. So being a real estate investment company allows them to see that, hey, this guy knows what he's doing when it comes to the tax side for real estate investors because he probably uses real estate tax strategies that can help him minimize his tax liability. All right, so that's one way. Then another parallel business, for example, is Badu Life and Health Solutions LLC, which is a life insurance agency. Well, who better to get your life insurance through than your own trusted advisor, aka your CPA? You know. And then we have Badu Entity Formation. Who better to form your legal entity than the person who knows your finances more than anybody else, your CPA? Then we have Badu Financial Fitness LLC. Who better to coach you on your finances
Hmm.
than your actual CPA who knows your taxes, who's seen your numbers, knows how many kids you have, knows how much money you make, he knows everything about you basically, he has your social security number. So who better to do those things than your CPA? And that's where 12 companies were born and rise in the Badu Enterprises brand. And that's what we mean when we say parallel, because they all relate to each other.
Ah. Well, I appreciate the lesson there. Like I said, that's the first time I've read that, but it makes a lot of sense. I get it.
For sure. Absolutely.
And so do you run all of those? Are those run by other people? Are they? How do you how do you integrate all of those things? So it's one thing to set up these parallel things, but then I guess it's another thing to actually run them successfully.
Yeah, great question. I feel like an entrepreneur's number one challenge on the planet is building a team because every entrepreneur says, I can do it all by myself. If I don't do it, nobody else can. And for me, I said, wait a second, let's do the 80-20 rule. If somebody can do something 80% as good as me, then I'm going to assign that role to them,
Right.
right? I'm going to delegate that task to them because eventually they will become, if not 100%, 90% as good as you can do it. And to me, that's good enough. The world isn't perfect. The world wasn't created as a perfect thing. It was intended to be created as perfect, but it's not perfect. So with that being said, we do have a team of people. In the tax firm, we have 30 team members. I'm the CEO of the tax firm. We have our chief operating officer, or COO, and we have our executives. We don't do the whole, we're not really looking to do a whole top down thing. We're more lateral, right? We're more parallel than that because we don't want anybody to say, oh yeah, just because he's a CEO, we can't talk to him. Right?
Hmm.
We're not that type of organization. We're very, very purpose driven, purpose filled centered, vision centered sort of organization. So we have 30 team members, all who do different things. They're all independent. Nobody's a W-2 employee or anything like that. And they're entrepreneurs, just like you said. Most CPAs, they just want to do taxes, sit in front of their computer all day and just do taxes. These folks, they're actually going out there and doing not just taxes. They're doing webinars. They're introducing clients to new services that we have. So overall, to sum it up, the Badu Enterprises has 100 people. Badu Tax Services has 30. The life insurance company is ran by my beautiful wife, Yvonne. She's the CEO of that company. And then we also have other companies who are led and ran by other folks, such as Badu Investments, which we have a property manager who basically runs the company.
Okay, so you've got 100 essentially independent teammates
Exactly.
who are working in parallel, like the way I did that, in parallel to make Badu Enterprises run the way you want it to run.
Exactly. So that means that I can be on vacation today and the companies would still run because they're not relying upon the CEO. Of course, when the CEO leaves, things get a little weird, right? It's like, hey, our main leader is out, right? So we can't talk to him, we can't call him, we can't email me unless it's an emergency. So by putting that structure in place, it's like I can be gone even during tax season. Let's say I'm gone for like 3 days during tax season. There's still people there that can do the tax returns, that can take on new clients. Most CPAs nowadays are not taking on any new clients because they don't have a sales team. They don't have an intake team. Nor do they have tax preparers, qualified tax preparers that can actually sign off on the tax returns. So with all that being said, you've got to grow your business. You've got to take yourself out of the business, where you allow people to work in the business and then you work on the business. You look at it from the outside looking in while still letting the team know that, hey, if things fail, I can step in and take over.
Jeff, you got really smart really fast. I mean, about this kind of stuff. How old are you? 30?
28 years old currently.
28, and you figured out stuff that took me many, many years. How'd you get so smart about these kinds of things?
Yeah, great question. I definitely want to attribute that to books that I read. I read books like Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, which taught me about how to not work for money, how the rich don't work for money. Instead, they let money work for them. And that really sat with me for a long time because when I initially wanted to be an entrepreneur, I didn't really know how to grow the business. I didn't even think that I would be putting like a lot of people in there, maybe 1 or 2 people. But you're talking about 100 people. And soon, next year we'll probably grow it to 300 people. I mean, that's a lot. I didn't think that far until I read books like that, to the point where I had to write my own books, which the first one being Infinite Expansion, how to infinitely expand your vision of abundance, which is a book about my purpose in life. So I definitely attribute books. I read since 2016, I've been reading 20 to 30 books a year. Books helped me a lot. I also want to attribute it to my business coach, Rick Justice, who teaches me the 12 practices of life and the 12 practices of business. And in 2018, I thought about giving up in the tax world, but I met Rick Justice and his wife, Monique Justice, and they turned things around completely. So as far as the wisdom.
How did you find them, Jeff?
They actually found me on LinkedIn.
Really?
Yeah, they found me on LinkedIn, and one of their colleagues or associates reached out to me. I actually turned them down initially, but then through persistence, they felt something. There's that spiritual connection, like something had to do it. So I kept turning them down, kept turning them down. And with a business coach, they're not usually going to chase you around, but they actually did. And now we're able to grow this multinational conglomerate known as Badu Enterprises, and definitely want to attribute a lot of the wisdom to Rick and Monique Justice for sure.
Very smart. Like I said, you're very smart. So a couple of things I want to cover before we're done. First of all, you mentioned, or I think I said it, that you support the super hungry, and I want to understand what you mean by the super hungry. Give me an idea of who the super hungry are.
Hmm. So a super hungry individual is somebody that's not just hungry, meaning that, when you're hungry, in the terms of food, when you're hungry, you can wait a little bit to eat. You can wait a few hours to eat, right? You won't necessarily die. You won't, right? You can wait a little bit to eat. But a super hungry individual, meaning somebody who's starving, they've got to eat now, right? Meaning that they're just going to soak up the resources now. And when I saw that individual when I was 16, I looked in their eyes. I'm like, you are a super hungry individual. I need to help people like you, right? It might not be you, but it could be people that look just like you. People who are internally motivated. There's a burning fire in them that is lit up already. I mean, if you equip them with the resources they need, they'll just take it and go. And so with that, a super hungry individual is somebody who's self-motivated, self-inspired, who doesn't need somebody to wake them up. They wake up on their own. They're like that lion who's ready to rip the cage open and go out and chase for prey. They're somebody who is fierce and somebody who they understand that if they don't grind today, they might not ever eat another day in their lives.
Hmm. How do you flush that out, Jeff? How do you?
I mean, so we have real conversations with people.
Yeah.
When we have real conversations with these individuals, we read them, we study them, we get to know them, we build trust and rapport. So as we're building trust and rapport, we're basically identifying certain characteristics.
Hmm.
Certain things they say, they're like, yeah, I want to be here forever, right? Or I've never had it like this before. Thank you for all that you've given me. Like just words that come out of their mouth. And then action. What are they actually doing? Are they showing up to trainings 5 minutes before everybody? Are they the first one that's in the parking lot? In our case, we do things virtually. Are they the first ones in the Zoom meeting room that's waiting for the meeting to start? So it's very easy to tell who wants it and who doesn't. And by having real conversations with people, I can easily tell, you know what, that person, let's invest a little bit more. For example, I have a guy who he's not even a part of the team yet. So I'm vouching for him before he even becomes a part of the team. He reaches out to me on LinkedIn because he's getting a CPA license. And he said, yeah, I want to work with your firm. I understand everything you've done. I've watched all your YouTube videos. I know, what you're all about. When can I get started? And I told him, hey, we don't have anything open yet for 6 months. He was like, okay, what can I do now to get started? Right. Then he was like, I mean, do you need help? I know you run a car rental business. Do you need me to do some car runs? I'm like, man, this individual, and they still reach out to me to this day, so, and they're about to join the team pretty soon because that person understands that if they're not doing these things, they might not live another day because they'll starve to death. Right. When you're starving, you need to get fed like immediately. And that's what that person was demonstrating.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that explanation. That helps.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about your real estate investments because you, like everything that you do, you kind of have a unique spin on it. And here, as I'm reading this, it says you're basically looking to restore traditionally underserved areas.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so that means that an area that historically hasn't had a lot of resources, hasn't had the best tenant management. We call them slumlords that they've been assigned to. So what we want to do is we want to take neighborhoods like the south side of Chicago, certain neighborhoods in the south side. We see a building that's run down, that has boards all over it, windows are broken. We want to fix those things so those communities look very presentable. And that way the tenants appreciate even more, like, hey, we're actually in a community that looks pretty good, presentable. What we do is we provide management services, meaning if something is broken, we're not going to wait 2 months to fix it. We're going to fix it right away. So we're going to give them that service, that service because they're paying rent to us. So we owe them an obligation to make sure that the place of abode is nice, it's stable, and they can actually live comfortably in there. And then we equip them with education through programs such as the Badu Foundation, where we teach them financial literacy on how to make money, how to preserve money, how to build wealth, how to build multi-generational wealth. So you're right. We put a spin on everything. We're not just about, oh yeah, let's just invest in real estate to make some money. Yeah, the money is nice. And trust me, when you make money, it is a good thing. But how about we put some impact behind the money? How about we put some impact behind what it is we're doing so that ironically we make even more money, right? We make an impact because when you give more, you get more. So if we're just making money, we're not really giving anything. We're just receiving. But when we're giving something, we're giving better management, we're giving better systems, we're giving better financial literacy resources, then we're going to get blessed 10 times what we give, which in turn means we make even more money.
That's always, so it's always been something I wonder about. You mentioned like slumlords, people who own these buildings, they collect rent and then they don't make repairs, they don't pay the taxes, it's basically like the business approach seems to be that I'm just going to milk this for everything I can and then I'm going to disappear and then I'm going to reappear somewhere else or whatever. And it seems like a horrible way to live, first of all, for the slumlord. Not, obviously it's not a great place to live for people who rent from these people, but how, you think about the mindset that someone has to have to do that. They must feel horrible about themselves, but because you're doing wrong by people all the time.
Exactly. And guess what? These are the people that don't get paid on time. So what happens is they sell their buildings to people like myself at a discount, and then we take better care of their people.
Nice.
You give what you are a reflection of the things you do to other people. So when you're doing bad to other people, guess what? Bad happens to you. It's the karma effect. But when you're doing good to people, then good things tend to happen. And as long as you're doing your best, as long as you're doing good, as long as you feel like, you know what, I'm giving it my all today, great things will happen to you. But I mean, it has to. There's no way that it hasn't. I haven't had a bad day, knock on wood. You know how people say they've had bad days? We have bad moments. I haven't had a bad day for about 10 years or so.
Well, you seem like the kind of guy that's kind of like me. You choose what your day is, how your day is. I mean, you can't choose what happens to you in your day. You can't choose how other people think or say or treat you or anything, but you can choose how you process it. And I know it's not easy, but it is something you can choose to do.
Exactly.
Well, I hope you go another 10 years without a bad day, Jeff.
For sure. Knock on wood, right?
So speaking of, a guy that had a business plan when he was a freshman in college and pretty much brought that to life times 10, what's your business plan like now for 5 years from now? Or what do you mentioned going from 100 people to 300 people. What else do you think you're going to be doing, and who are you going to be bringing along on your journey?
Yeah, so I mean, for us in the Badu Enterprises, we're all about the 3-10 rule. We're going to grow in 3s and 10s. So, for example, we're at 100 people. We want to have 300 next year. Then we go to 1,000. Then we go to 3,000. Then we go to 10,000. Right, that sort of thing. If we're at $1 million in revenue, we want to get to 3 million. Then we want to get to 10 million. Then we want to get to 30. Then 100, and so on and so forth. So we are numbers driven, right? We are an accounting firm after all, but we want super hungry, motivated people that want to work with an organization that truly cares about them, allows them to find their own purpose, allows them to drive their own cars where we give them the keys to the car. We want self-motivated people. Yeah. And then we also want them to make an impact through organizations such as the Badu Foundation, where they can teach financial literacy, where they can educate the youth or the homeless or whoever needs education. So the only people we're bringing on are super hungry individuals. And we've gotten a lot more strict on who we're bringing on to our organization because we found out that certain types of people we just don't work too well with. Okay. So overall, what is our end goal? I mean, we just want to keep growing, and we want to inspire and support the super hungry to take hold of infinite resources in order to create an abundant lifestyle, which will lead to our vision of creating a community of abundance.
So if you're listening and you're super hungry, or you know someone who's super hungry, Jeff, where do they send? Where do these people go?
I mean, honestly, you can go to my website, which is jeffbadu.com. That's jeffbadu.com. And that's where you'll find a lot of resources. You'll find blogs, videos, my 3 books that I've written. You'll find, you can subscribe, for example, to our newsletter, things of that nature. So, that's an opportunity to get to know me. It's an opportunity to get, just get access to the resources. And then if you see fit, we can have a conversation. Usually email is the best way to get to me. My email address is jeffbadu@gmail.com. And then you can also catch me on social media at jbadu32, jbadu32. And that's my Instagram and that's my Twitter. So those would be the 3 ways. But the main side is the jeffbadu.com, my personal website.
Okay, got it. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for making time for me and for my listeners today. It's been really fun and amazing to go on the journey with you through your very young career so far. That's been amazing, and not just in the business side, but your career as a person, your journey as a person. And thanks for sharing that. And I wish you tremendous success, which you probably don't need, but I but I wish it to you anyway. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Mike.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the How Did Happen podcast, where we believe that success doesn't happen unless you make it happen. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. And while you're there, please rate it and leave a comment as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show, ideas for future guests, or whatever you'd like to share. And of course, you can always find me at mikemalatesta.com. See you next time. Thanks again for listening to the How Did Happen podcast.